Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
The Education Equation with College Board President Jeremy Singer is a new podcast exploring real research, real results, and real strategies that improve student outcomes. Each episode, Jeremy brings in experts and innovators in education who are leading on solutions, technologies, and research-backed approaches that move the needle for students. Ready to dive in? Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Visit theeducationequation.org.
This episode begins with one weekend and 2 birthday celebrations in separate parts of town in Orlando, Florida. It was a Saturday evening in August 2020. 44-year-old Erin Hartigan, an Orange County government attorney, was celebrating a belated birthday with a friend. They were having dinner outside at her friend's house. They hadn't seen each other in months because Erin had been social distancing. She was immunocompromised. Erin's mother lived with her during the pandemic, so at least she hadn't been isolating alone. But finally, she and her friend were now able to catch up on the porch over takeout. In addition to being an attorney, Erin was a guardian ad litem to help abused children. She was smart and compassionate and kind, but there was also an innate toughness about her. She had beaten cancer twice. She was a survivor. Across town at a surprise birthday party on Friday night, William Ramon Franklin was celebrating his 33rd birthday. Now, before I continue, I want to clarify that this William Franklin is not the same one who was recently freed from prison after spending 44 years there for a crime he says he didn't commit. That is an entirely different case. This William, celebrating his 33rd birthday, had what they call a checkered past. He was a 14-time convicted felon and an admitted drug user. He had a work history of doing odd jobs, although he was currently unemployed and living with his mom. His longtime girlfriend, Quintana LaShawn Clay, later told police that after that Friday night birthday party, William began acting strange.
William, you've known him for 8 years. The way he was behaving that night, Saturday morning, Friday night, had you ever seen him behave like that before?
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay.
My thing is, I've never seen him act like that, and I knew something wasn't right because how he was talking.
She said he rambled about witchcraft and slavery, and even talked about somebody trying to kill him. It scared her enough that she made him go to the hospital twice on Saturday, the day after the party.
Going into Saturday morning, around 3 o'clock, I got myself up and I noticed that he was laughing, and I'm like, okay. It wasn't like a ha 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 laugh. It was like a laugh I never heard him do. And he was like hallucinating, and I'm like, something is not right with you, and what's going on, baby? What's wrong? And he was telling me stuff that I didn't understand, and I'm like, okay, all right, let me call somebody from your family. So I called his aunt, and I asked her, like, am I tripping? Like, can you talk to him and see if he'll repeat something to you or have a conversation? And she started talking to him. And then after that, she just told me to call the police.
Quintana worried about William's mental state. He was taken to the Orlando Regional Medical Center, or ORMC, one of the large hospitals in Orlando. And then he disappeared from ORMC early Sunday morning. He walked out of the hospital, even though doctors hadn't discharged him and no one was there to pick him up. He headed out into the nearby residential neighborhood on foot. Then, at 4:30 a.m.,
Orlando Police 911, this is Fahad on a recorded line. What's the address of your emergency?
the caller on the other end was a woman. "I need an ambulance," she said. Her daughter had been attacked, and the attacker was still out in the neighborhood. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 273. Half a mile from ORMC, Erin Hartigan's mom, Lorraine, was sitting in a police car.
This is Detective Wayfare, the Orlando Police Department. Today's date is Sunday, August 16th, 2020. The time is now approximately 07:10 hours. This is an interview taking place in my CID vehicle in front of 320 Jasmine.
Lorraine recalled how she had been sleeping in the spare bedroom in her daughter's bungalow. The bungalow, which had old locks on the doors, was located on a lake in an unassuming neighborhood with brick streets lined with oak trees.
Okay, Miss Hartigan, I know this is going to be tough, and so just bear with me as I ask the questions that we need to try and figure out what happened tonight. Can you tell me, how the police wound up at your house tonight? What happened?
Lorraine described to detectives being suddenly awoken by screaming coming from what sounded like the kitchen. She said that Erin would typically scream for a palmetto bug or a rat. It took a minute for her to realize that there was also a huge commotion right outside her door. She said in addition to the screaming, she heard a voice yelling, "Whoop, whoop, whoop." She found the overhead light and switched it on. She then went over to the door, opened it, and she saw Erin fall down against it with a person standing over her. She said the person didn't look at her at all, and they just simply rose up and left. She saw blood, first around Erin's mouth and then by her torso. The detectives asked her to describe what the person looked like. She said it was a man with broad shoulders, but wasn't a big man. She recalled him wearing a plaid shirt.
What was he wearing? Was he wearing pants that you could see? What did you see?
She said the only thing she really saw was his shirt. She was asked if she ever checked on Erin's condition or tried to render first aid. There was no way, she said. There was a pool of blood.
What did it sound like they were trying to, this whoop, whoop? Did it sound like they were trying to say something, or?
She said it sounded more like a war cry, not something normal. She didn't believe the man saw her, or if he did, wasn't worried about her having seen him, given that she was an 82-year-old woman. She said he didn't run away, just lifted up and sauntered away. Almost like a professional, she said. Just walked away. Not like someone who had just killed someone. Lorraine described the last night of Erin's life, how she had gone to a friend's house and had takeout dinner on the porch, how she came home around 9 p.m. and the two of them, mother and daughter, watched a movie together and drank a cocktail. There hadn't been any warning signs that anything was wrong in Erin's life. No weird phone calls or threatening text messages. No one was angry with her, even though she was an attorney. Her specialty in law was land use. Erin Hartigan had been stabbed in the neck and was pronounced dead at the scene at her home in the Delaney Park neighborhood. Delaney Park is an upscale, historical neighborhood in downtown Orlando. And if the name sounds familiar, Delaney Park was also the site of another murder that we covered on episode 191. You may recall David Tronis led a secret life, married to his wife Shanti while having affairs on the side. David and Shanti's marriage broke down while they were renovating their Delaney Park home. Shanti was found beaten to death in 2018, David was later convicted of murdering her in 2023. It took years for justice in that case because of David's mental state. As police began investigating this other murder in Delaney Park, they uncovered 2 bloody knives that a resident found in the grass next to his driveway, about 1/10 of a mile from Erin's home. A third knife was found by Erin's body. Also in the neighborhood were a pair of discarded socks and flip-flops. But a bigger break was about to come. An Orlando resident was on a staycation at a Marriott when his neighbor texted him about an intruder roaming his property at about 9:30 in the morning on Sunday, 5 hours after prosecutors believe Erin was murdered.
She texts me, says there's somebody walking around your backyard, spending a lot of time in your backyard. At first, their first thought was, oh, he's going to go fishing with him because he's messing with my John boat. I have a John boat back there.
Right.
Then they realized that I'm not there.
Right.
I'm not present. The individual then begins to move stuff around, primarily lake rakes.
Okay.
To sort of pull the weeds out.
This is her telling you this.
This is her telling me this, okay. And you can go out there and see the lake rakes have been moved around quite a bit from where they normally are. My boat, the John boat, sank because the plug is not in the boat, so the rain can drain. It sank. It's out there in the water now. The individual spent some time along that seawall. I have a little wall there that prevents erosion.
So they were in the water.
They were in the water and out of the water, messing around with the wall.
Orlando police arrived to see a man with long dreadlocks swimming in the lake, wearing only boxer shorts and a shirt. The man had fresh cuts on his right hand. It was William Franklin, who police learned had been reported missing from the hospital 5 hours earlier. A diving team dove into the lake and recovered a pair of pink shorts in 2 feet of water that had been pushed into the embankment under the bushes. A detective wrote in his report, "When the shorts were recovered, I noticed the right front pocket had been ripped." They were the same pink shorts William was last seen wearing at the hospital, according to surveillance video. A bloodhound and a canine handler were called, and they tracked the area from where William had been in the water to a path through the neighborhood, leading directly to Erin Hartigan's front door. Erin Hartigan was dead from knife wounds in her neck and her body. William Ramon Franklin was found nearby in a lake after he had walked out of the hospital. He had been treated after he reportedly began hallucinating and showing an altered mental state after taking drugs. Investigators were eager to speak with William as they investigated Erin's death. Handcuffed, he was interviewed for about 2 hours in interview room 2 at the police headquarters in downtown Orlando. According to the arrest affidavit, William told police he cut his hand 2 or 3 days prior. How did he get those cuts? William didn't know. "I woke up and they were there," he said. He also told police he had gone to the hospital to get a COVID test, which wasn't true. What happened after William left the hospital? He said he didn't remember that either. Detective Brian Ferreira wrote in his affidavit, he could not recall exactly what happened after he left the hospital. He also stated he could not recall killing or doing something to anyone. Further, he could not recall being invited into anyone's home. I asked him if it was possible he went into a home, and he responded it was, adding he could have even been in the house with a dead person. Detective Ferreira noted he never told William what kind of crime he was investigating, so William was not informed it was a murder. At one point, after being asked about the possibility of finding either his blood or fingerprints at the crime scene, William replied, "Anything is possible," Detective Ferreira wrote. When asked for an explanation as to why those items would be found in the crime scene, Franklin replied, "You got to find out how they got killed." Detective Ferreira left the interview room, a bare-boned room with 3 chairs and a table, The room was video monitored and recorded. William was left alone in the empty room for long stretches of time while 2 other officers watched him. And that's when he made even more incriminating remarks. Both officers heard William Franklin state out loud and to himself he did not mean to kill that lady, Detective Ferreira wrote in the arrest affidavit. I recognize this statement to contain case-specific information which had not been provided to him at any time during his encounter with law enforcement. With that, authorities now believed there was probable cause to charge William with first-degree murder and burglary of an occupied dwelling with a weapon. But was William of sound mind when he made that confession? His defense team would later ask a judge to have the confession thrown out. It was a bizarre case. According to the headlines, a seemingly paranoid, babbling man had slipped out of the hospital and was accused of breaking into a stranger's home in the middle of the night. Erin Hartigan had been stabbed repeatedly. The murder weapon, kitchen knives pulled from her cutting board. There was no clear motive since William and Erin hadn't known each other, and nothing of value appeared to have been stolen. This is no accident, the prosecutor said later in court. This isn't a sudden passion case, somebody walking in on their loved one or their spouse cheating on them, those sort of facts. William's mental state was scrutinized and played a central role in his case. At a pretrial hearing in 2022 over whether that confession could be brought up at trial, the public defender's office representing William called Dr. Randy Otto to the stand to testify in front of the judge. Dr. Otto was a full-time professor at the University of South Florida's Department of Mental Health Foreign Policy and also ran his own psychology practice, where his patients were in the legal system. He explained what questions he usually answered when he evaluated defendants in the criminal system. Were they able to waive their constitutional rights? Were they competent to stand trial? Were they insane when they committed the crime? William's public defender, Fabian Goff, asked him, "So I know you've told us that you've had experience in evaluating defendants. Can you tell us how many criminal defendants you've evaluated over the course of your career?" "I don't have a master list, but I've been doing it for over 30 years now, and I would safely estimate that I evaluate 1 to 2 criminal defendants a week," Dr. Otto testified. "So maybe 75 defendants a year times 30 years at least, well over 2,000 criminal defendants, a conservative estimate." Dr. Otto had evaluated and interviewed William over 5 hours in jail. He also met with William's girlfriend and mother and watched the 13-hour-long video of William sitting in the interview room and being interviewed by police. There was also a long paper trail, William's medical reports from ORMC, the arrest and investigation reports, as well as letters William had written. Goff asked Dr. Otto what his opinion was about the interrogation video and William's mental state. "My opinion is that Mr. Franklin's emotional, behavioral, and cognitive functioning was significantly impaired from the beginning of the interrogation, the recorded interrogation, all the way through towards the end," Dr. Otto testified. He pointed out all the times William sounded impaired, all the lies he told, all the strange things he had said. I'm going to read you Dr. Otto's testimony. Quote, "Right from the start, I saw evidence of impaired functioning. And I'll give you some examples. Very early on in the interview, within the first few pages of the transcript, there's a reference to Mr. Franklin reporting that he had been transported to Orlando Regional Medical Center because of concerns he might have contracted COVID. That's just patently untrue. That's wrong. That's inaccurate. He was twice transported there because of concerns about his impaired mental state, because family members were concerned about confused and problematic thinking. That's why he went there twice. On page 13 of the transcript, he tells the detective that he was released from the hospital. Now, I guess you could argue about the meaning of release, but Mr. Franklin was he left the hospital without even any of the hospital staff noticing that he left the hospital. So technically, again, someone interprets the word release. He was not released. He walked off. And it was discovered later by staff, and they were very concerned. He claimed that he was transported from his mother's residence to the hospital. He says that on page 13 of the transcript. He tells the detective that. That's not true. He was transported from the residence that he shared with his longtime girlfriend. At one point during the evaluation, he began vandalizing or taking apart parts of the interview room when he was unsupervised. In my opinion, that reflects impaired emotional, behavioral, and cognitive functioning. Dr. Otto went on to describe other evidence. Quote, Mr. Franklin stated he did not know why he was at the police station. That's page 13 of the transcript. On page 15 of the transcript, he stated he did not know if he had a wife. On page 17, he stated he was in jail. On page 22, he claimed that he had drove to the location where he was discovered by law enforcement officers. He drove there in a crimson truck, and the investigation materials provided no indication that he was ever in a crimson truck. On page 25 of the transcript, he queries the law enforcement officer as to whether he was speaking outside the interview room with his cousins and claims that he heard officers speaking with his cousins. The officer indicates that's inaccurate. He admitted he had been admitted to the hospital for COVID treatment. He later claimed he went to the hospital because he lost a game of checkers. He said that. He claimed that he drank poison. That, I guess, could be true. Dr. Otto testified that William spoke in a very disorganized and incoherent way. There was no sense or logic to what he was saying out loud and simply to himself. He made references while in the interrogation room, he said. He referred to slavery, coffee, witchcraft, the devil, chocolate with blood in it, the interplane theory, gambling, roosters, bulls, South America, ancient Hebrew, shapeshifters, and sitting in a corn tree. Dr. Otto then read out loud something William had told the police. I'm sorry for that shit, but I ain't got any try to kill them folks for I ain't one to do that shit. But Dad and B told me to cut the TV on. That's what made me, instantly bitch. I don't have love for that lady, but I got lied. I ain't got no feelings for her or no love, but I feel bad for her that did that shit. Dr. Otto said William's words didn't make sense and were concerning. This rambling, incoherent hodgepodge of statements, in my opinion, reflects impaired cognitive, emotional, and behavioral functioning throughout the course of his time in the interrogation room, he testified. The officers who first came across Mr. Franklin described him as disoriented with respect to where he was and how he had arrived there. I'll leave it at that. Goff asked, Dr. Otto, in your opinion, if Mr. Franklin was able to answer some questions coherently during the interrogation, how, if at all, would that impact your conclusion about his emotion, cognitive, and behavioral functions being impaired? Dr. Otto responded that you can be terribly impaired and still get something right, like your name. The prosecutor also got a turn to ask Dr. Otto questions. Your opinion, based on all the materials that you reviewed and the evaluations of Mr. Franklin, was that this was a result of substance abuse ingestion, as opposed to due to something like schizophrenia, another psychotic disorder, or a mood disorder like bipolar depression, correct? Dr. Otto agreed. And with no other questions, he left the stand. In his absence, Assistant State Attorney William J. told the judge that William was clearly impaired by drugs, but that he was aware of what was happening around him. He said William had mentioned a red pickup truck, but that was because he had overheard police and the neighbors talking about a red pickup truck in the road getting towed. He also pointed out that, quote, page 21, and again, he's going through over and over again that he does not remember what happened that night before. He gets confronted with evidence on page 21. He says he doesn't recall doing anything, that he's innocent. If he did something, why would he just go across the street and stay there? So he's with it enough to start making an argument for his innocence with the evidence. As for the drugs, the prosecutor quoted where William said, "I must have been on some alcohol or something last night. Something happened. Could have been drunk and on Xanax or something." The prosecutor said, "He states repeatedly that he takes Percocets for recreational use." The prosecutor told the judge that the state would submit that it is showing that he comprehends in a general way what he's doing and he's not in a state of mania. But Goff argued that no, William was manic and out of it. He said, "Your Honor, given Mr. Franklin's nonsensical responses to these officers' questions, it's clear that Mr. Franklin is suffering from mania. I know that Mr. J made a point to mention that this could possibly be a voluntary intoxication. At this juncture, for this issue, it does not matter in the slightest. What matters is whether or not Mr. Franklin was able to make a knowing, intelligent, and voluntary waiver of his Miranda rights. What matters is that Mr. Franklin had the wherewithal to know what was happening." He pointed out that William, towards the end of the interrogation, believed that the officers were accusing him of running somebody over, and Detective Ferreira denied that as well. If you watch the video of the interrogation, you'll actually see Detective Ferreira get increasingly frustrated at Mr. Franklin's answers. At one point, Detective Ferreira is telling Mr. Franklin, "We are your lifeline. You saying you can't remember is not enough. It's not going to get you anywhere, so you need to tell us something." And Mr. Franklin sticks to his guns, saying, "I don't remember, I don't remember, I do not remember." Detective Ferreira had been in the process of reading William his Miranda rights. "You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?" he had asked. William hesitated. Then the detective interjected in the middle of reading the rights. "I mean, you're in somebody's backyard, right? Were you supposed to be in somebody's backyard?" he had asked. Right there, William's defense argued, that was improper. Detective Ferreira should have fully read the Miranda rights. Instead, he implicated William, at the very least, for a trespass. Goff said, "So here in this situation, where Detective Ferreira had diluted the Miranda warnings by asking Mr. Franklin a question in the middle of the administration of those warnings, that again renders the administration of those warnings involuntary." The judge made her decision a few months later. William's incriminating remarks caught on camera, they could be used as evidence against him. Flash forward 2 years later. William Ramon Franklin would finally stand trial for Erin Hartigan's murder. And more of William's own words were going to be used against him. On January 30th, 2024, opening statements began as William Ramon Franklin stood trial for 6 days in the downtown Orlando courthouse. Assistant State Attorney Kimberly Mann laid out the evidence against him. His fingerprint was found in Erin's house. She also said, there was video showing a figure that looked remarkably like Mr. Franklin running away during the time frame of the murder, and they found him in the area later that morning. She argued that William was sane when he killed Erin. He was cognizant enough to run away from the crime scene, throw away the murder weapon, and jump into the lake to wash away the evidence. He even pretended he was a homeowner to blend in and attempt to hide when the police arrived. She said the jury would have to decide the answers to 3 questions. The first is, was Mr. Franklin the person who killed Erin Hartigan? Second, was he in an altered state because of ingesting, voluntarily, something that intoxicated him? And third, did that cause him to not be able to form a conscious intent to commit a crime? Those are the 3 questions. Hopefully, after you've heard all of the testimony, you will agree that Mr. Franklin intentionally took a controlled substance and during the course of his encounter with Erin, killed her, and that he is criminally responsible for his actions. In their opening statements, the defense did not dispute that William had killed Erin. But William's attorney, Fabian Goff, said he was innocent by reason of insanity due to involuntary intoxication. There's going to be one fundamental truth that you'll see over and over again through the evidence that you'll see and that you'll hear, and that fundamental truth is that Mr. Franklin was legally insane at the time of this incident, Goff told jurors. You're going to hear about that insanity with Mr. Franklin's statements. For example, in that interrogation that Ms. Mann told you about, you will hear that Mr. Franklin made nonsensical statements about voodoo, witchcraft, cleaning a pool. In fact, his statements were so bizarre that detectives had to ask him, have you ever been diagnosed with a mental illness? Have you ever been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility through a Baker Act? The statements were so bizarre that law enforcement had to ask him that. But you won't just hear about his insanity. You'll see it too. You'll see it through his behavior. You'll see it through him walking out of the hospital before he was actually checked out. You'll see it through him losing his pants, because when officers finally found him, they found him pantsless. You'll see it through his disoriented and confused behavior throughout the entirety of this process. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear a lot of evidence, and you're going to see a lot of evidence, but don't lose sight of the fundamental truth that Mr. Franklin was insane when this happened. As for the involuntary intoxication claim, he said William's beer had actually been spiked at his birthday party the night before, and that he was going through a substance-induced psychosis at the time of Erin's murder. Testifying for the prosecution, however, William's friend Tamara testified that William had asked her for Percocets. She didn't have a prescription either, so she said she got the pills from somebody named Haiti. Tamara testified that she gave William 3 pills at his birthday party. A doctor who treated him at ORMC testified that William told him that he had been taking more and more drugs in the past several days, including painkillers, mollies, cocaine, and marijuana. 2 experts testified that it was hard to know exactly what William had taken, but suggested it could be PCP, or cathinones, also known as bath salts. Jurors also heard about Erin's brutal injuries. She was down on the ground when many of these blows were landed, the prosecutor told the jury. There was no doubt, she said. The knife attack was meant to kill. Erin, who was only 108 pounds and who didn't stand a chance to fight back. According to the medical examiner, Erin had numerous stab wounds between her chest, to her shoulders, up to her face, and in her throat so deep that it penetrated the muscles, her carotid artery, and into her windpipe by 2 inches. In their closing arguments, the prosecution had a bombshell in the form of a jailhouse call, something that they believed would bolster their claims about William's insanity defense. Speaking from behind bars in January 2021, William Franklin could be heard talking in a recorded jailhouse call about the big difference between voluntary and involuntary intoxication and what that would mean for his case. According to the prosecution, it was after that call that William changed his story to claim that he had been spiked at his birthday party. It was his choice, the prosecutor argued in closing arguments. He's a grown man. Nobody forced the pills down his throat. Nobody forced the pot in his mouth. Nobody forced any of the drugs that he self-reported taking into his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence of the involuntary intoxication is not credible. It doesn't even rise to a reasonable doubt. The defense argued in their closing arguments that William's friend Tamara had spiked William's drink. Tamara had denied this while on the stand, but William's attorney said she was lying. So over the course of the last week, we've seen and we've heard evidence of someone who was incoherent and hallucinating, someone who had to be checked into the hospital twice, someone who was found pantsless and disoriented by a lake. And when he was found, he was out of his mind. He had no idea where he was going or where he had come from, he said. Mr. Franklin was not sane. Mr. Franklin was not sane. Like I said in my opening statements, that is the fundamental truth of this case. Mr. Franklin was not sane because of the drug that was slipped to him by Tamara, something that he did not want nor he did not ask for. And because he was slipped that drug, that placed him on a path leading him to that chair. In their rebuttal, the prosecutor reminded the jury, and of course, the voluntary versus involuntary is the crux of this issue. We don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt voluntary intoxication. What the law says is voluntary intoxication is not a defense, and no evidence of voluntary intoxication is admissible to prove anything. The jury deliberated and then came back with a verdict. William Franklin was guilty of murder. They did not believe his insanity plea. Erin's siblings addressed the court during William's sentencing hearing. Her brother talked about Erin beating cancer twice. We learned from Erin what it is to be sick and to fight back and overcome and live on. Our sister was not just a part of our family, she was truly the heartbeat that connected us all. Erin helped to raise our children. She was the auntie, there for every graduation, every birthday, and every event. Erin was a person who cared for other people more than she cared for herself. Her absence leaves an incredible void. He also spoke about William Franklin. We now know that this person has 14 felony convictions and is a longtime drug user. He has been and will always be a danger to society. And for that person to ever walk through an Orlando neighborhood again is unthinkable. For him to wander the streets, trying doorknobs to see which one might turn is unthinkable. We do not want any other families to feel the pain that we feel now and forever. We do not want the community as a whole to be haunted by the specter of such totally random violence. The joy and light that Erin gave us was extinguished so suddenly and senselessly that it simply defies comprehension. William was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without parole. He is appealing. And that's all for this episode. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. Let me know by joining the conversation on Instagram @CourtJunkie, on Twitter or X @CourtJunkiePod, or by email at podcast@CourtJunkie.com. This episode was researched and written by Gabrielle Russon. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.